Hello, everybody. Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night. We're broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. So, today we have a very nice guest here, pretty cool guest. His name's Chris Archer, born in Toronto, Canada, and he's from out of the head of the Lake Reservation out of Vernon, British Columbia. And let me bring on my host, the one and only Darren Yazzie. There he is in the flesh. And here's our guest of honor. Drum roll, please. No, just playing. There he is.
Hey, how are you?
What's up? What's up? Let's see. Let's go to the comments. Let's see here. Theodore, Cat, Joey. Hi, Don and Darren. What's up, Mr. Theodore? Oh, hey, Darren, put your thing down.
Oh, shoot.
There you go.
All right, there. I'm back. All right.
Rookie mistake. Nah,
Oh, yeah.
So, oh, hold on 1 second here. TG, what's up? How's it going?
Hey. Good afternoon.
I bet out of the reservation right there. Might be our next guest right there watching.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So today, Mr. Chris, the elegant hobo.
Yeah.
There he is. So this man is very, very intelligent. This man comes from a life. You know, he fought dragons. You know, he used to have a mullet. You know, he upgraded to a mohawk now. You know, now he's married. And go ahead, Chris. Tell everyone about yourself. You know, the legend of Chris.
Yeah, just a regular guy. Born and raised in Toronto. Young teen, went out to BC to the reservation where my grandmother and mother were born. Ended up meeting my wife out there. Got married, had kids. Was a musician when I was younger. Became a chef. I'm in the education field now, so that's really it. I had a pretty colorful life before I was 25. So,
hey man, sometimes that's what it takes. You know what I mean? You got to get out there and live life and experience it, and then you're here. You know, you're 100% legit person. That's why I recommend, like a lot of the young adults, you know, if you don't know what to do, you want to do something, just go join the Conservation Corps. I was in the Conservation Corps, and it's a lot of fun, you know, a lot of fun and scary places I've been. but yeah, Darren, Darren out of Rama, New Mexico. Say what's up, Darren.
What's up, guys? Listeners. What's going on?
Yeah, we got 2 hours now, so we can just you know what I mean. Earlier I was like, all right, go ahead, talk. But Chris, I'm gonna give the mic to you, and you can lead us off on whichever step you want. But it could be in the beginning, which is good. But it's your show, it's your episode right now.
Oh my, look at that. Yeah. Okay, I'll start at the beginning. I was born 1970, so I'm an old fart. My mom's obviously Native. My dad was white. I grew up pretty much an acolyte in the occult. My dad was into some very nasty stuff. So I was kind of trained as an apprentice in that for many, many years. My dad wasn't a very nice person. It's hard to say that out in public in the open air, but I mean, truth is truth. It is what it is. Wasn't very cool. But although I learned a lot of the occult things, there were still things that were empty. During my experience as a young child in the occult, meeting who my dad knew, at first it didn't seem out of the ordinary to be meeting all these people. Until I got a little bit older, I started noticing that these people were very affluent. They were people in the community and even the guy that were quite high up. You start putting two and two together, and you notice that this is part of like a little club, right? When I got older, like I was homeless since I left home when I was 12. Very abusive home, so it was either stay and probably die or take your chances on the street. That's what I did. Took a long time to outgrow kind of the PTSD that you suffered at home kind of deal. although it is easily done looking in hindsight, but at the time you just don't know how do you get out of this. Growing up, I knew I was half white because my dad was British, right? And I knew my mom was my mom, but I didn't know where they were from. I didn't know what tribe or band they were from. I didn't know what part of the country where they were from. It was really kept from me. So that is one of the things that as a young preteen, we don't need a lot was what completes me. Like, who is this person? My dad was extremely racist, by the way, which made me feel like I didn't belong. Like him saying the words that he said and me knowing that I'm half something else made me feel like not only was I not loved, but I really don't matter in his eyes because I'm just a tool of abuse. And that whole journey growing up and trying to learn as much as I can who is my great-grandfather, who was my grandfather, who are they? I mean, I didn't know. So as I was on the street living my own thing, I started talking to my grandmother and my aunt, who was in the picture. My aunt was very much in the picture on my maternal side. And they told me exactly where we were from. And because I was on the street and there was really no rules, I made up my own rules. I put my guitar in my back and packed an Adidas bag, stuck my thumb out, and I hitchhiked all the way from Ontario to BC. They didn't know I was coming out there. I just kind of showed up, and I remember the bus landed because I ended up hitching a ride on a bus, ended up in Vancouver, went north from Vancouver to Vernon, and I just picked up a phone. I had my uncle's number. I never talked to, never met. It was like 4 a.m. I called this dude. He answers the phone. I mean, it rang for like 20 times, right? You know, this is back in the 80s. It was a free phone. So he picks up the phone. I said, "Hey, you don't know me, but I'm your cousin, and I'm here." So he drove all the way out and picked me up, and that was the start of my journey of the completion of who I am. Yeah,
that's good. That's wonderful. That's what family are there for, you know.
Yeah,
you always got to go search for that love, you know what I mean? Sometimes your immediate family don't give you that love, and there's always a sense of you yearning for where your history is, where you're meant to be, you know.
For sure. And I think there's a big thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Out of all this, Chris, my man, my dude, where's your mother? Was your mother a part of this occult business too, or
no? Mom wasn't. See, Mom and Dad split up when I was quite young. I was about 5 or 6. Yeah, I was estranged from my mom for the majority of my life. She had a lot of substance abuse and alcohol issues, mostly alcohol issues. Mom and Dad were like a jackal and a mongoose. Like they were constantly fighting. We even had the SWAT team at my house when I was very young, and they took me out of there. Yeah. They took my dad out in cuffs. I remember opening the door. There was a knock at the door, and I must have been 5. And I opened the door, and everywhere I could see down, up the stairs, down the hallway was all SWAT team. And they all had their guns pointed, and then they lowered their guns. And the head of the dude came up, and they said, "Do you like ice cream?" I said, "Yeah." I go, "Well, you come with me." So I went with them. They took me to safety, and they got my dad out of there because he was armed. So
wow.
And that was because they were fighting, and he had threatened to shoot whoever, and plus my mom. And I mean, he wasn't, like I said, he wasn't the greatest dude.
He wasn't a good person.
He wasn't a good person. I still love him. I love him probably more than he loved me, but that's child's prerogative.
Yeah, you're innocent, you know what I mean? That like a child, like a kid won't like we'll be friends with another kid of different color. You know what I mean? They don't know hate, you know what I mean? And then like the same thing, you know, people are practicing like witchcraft and like the dark occult practices.
Right.
Where they don't have any love in them. You know what I mean?
There tends to be something missing. Yeah, there is a void. There is something that they're trying to fill up, and it never fills up. And I got to say, there was a lot of that for me in my life as well. I was always searching for that truth. And the more I was discovering certain things, the more I noticed that it still wasn't filling me up. There was still something missing. So there's always that quest, right? And then there's the thing, what are you going to do with truth when it does pound on your door? You have a choice still. Regardless if you like it, You might completely be opposed to what that truth is at the time. Are you willing to accept it and receive it? Or are you willing to move on? Because that is your choice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I had to deal with as a young man. Are you going to be authentic, or are you going to be a putz? And just go on and do what your dad did. That was the biggest thing, was I'm not going to be like my dad, and I'm not.
Yeah, same here.
I'm going to break this cycle, and it's going to end with me one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it becomes.
Yeah.
So tell us more about this cult practices. What do you remember them doing? Or where they were like dressing up in black cloaks and stuff like that? Or
no. Actually, I was told early on. My father told me it's not the people that are very overtly occultic that you have to worry about. It's the people that are normal. They look normal, they talk normal, and there's people in high places. That's one of the first things I was taught. They're teachers. They are they are government. They are people that are
police chiefs.
Absolutely. People in social work and social services and child services. Now, I was told this matter-of-factly, and of course I'm very young, so it doesn't really mean much at the time. But as you get older and you start to meet these people, it is a truth. So no, they didn't practice that stuff with me or around me. But then I started to know that these were people that were like-minded, part of the club, so to speak. And there's a very affluent man that I knew because my dad worked in sports industry. And this person actually has a trophy named after him. It doesn't take you very much to research NHL and a certain trophy, but I knew this family, and this particular person died. I was probably 9. Oh no, probably 11 or 12, 81, 82 when he died. But you'd know his name if you follow hockey. Anyway, that family was very, very much into the occult, and it was this fella's father.
I like that, Danny. I got the same thing, dude. I'm gonna write some of this stuff down too myself. Right on.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Take notes. So it was his father actually that started in theosophy, and it just went down through. I mean, this man, he was an old man by the time I was, 12. I think he was dead by the time I was 12. I think it was the summer of '81 he had passed. But you get to know all these people, and they're bigwigs. And my dad worked. He was a jockey before I was born, so he raced thoroughbred horses. And he actually came over. This is really strange. He was brought over by E.P. Taylor, who started horse racing pretty much in North America. And he was brought over as a young teen, like 14, to start riding for E.P. Taylor. And of course, you don't just start your career riding. You got to work your way up, sort of deal. But that's a big deal to be brought over from England when you're 14 years old by the head of who started thoroughbred horse racing, right? So it was this circle with Queen's Plate and all these other things. And I knew famous jockeys. I had to call them uncle because that was kind of a term of endearment. You never, back in the 70s, you never really talked to your parents' friends by their first names. It was either Uncle John or Uncle Robin, or right. That was a term of respect, kind of thing. So, but all these guys I talked to about. But so you start to see these people in highfalutin areas, lots of money, lots of clout, and you put 2 and 2 together, and you know that they're all. I knew this one guy was definitely part of the team. So everything I started, and that really played into when I was homeless as well. I had to be very careful what happened, because I knew certain places, if I end up in social services, chances are I'm going to be, and that happened a lot. I get picked up by the cops, they drag me back home. I'm like, you can't do that. Like, don't take me home. Take me to jail. Don't take me home, because that's a danger zone. Jail I could probably deal with a lot easier than going home. But because they all know each other, I get picked up, I'm going home.
Yeah, that's not a place you want to go.
That's not
yeah. Darren, you got a question?
Did you ever try to tell your friends, or some like there's some weird stuff going on back at my house? Like was there a friend you went to or anything like that?
There's very close friends that knew. It wasn't really talked about a lot. I do remember an instance when I went to school, and because my dad was a jockey, I didn't get spanked as kids did in the 70s. I got the horsewhip, and I ended up having to go to gym class. This is in grade school. I must have been grade 4, grade 5. And I don't know if it's still the same now, but the school I work at now is. But you all go to the same change room and you get dressed. All the boys are over here, all the girls are over here, right? So I was really slagging it. I didn't want to get undressed in front of all the other boys. So I'm waiting and waiting, and I'm getting in trouble. I'm getting yelled at by the teacher. Archer, get your stuff off. Get changing your gym stuff. I didn't want to do it. So I slowly did. And the day before I got a whooping. So I didn't want to get changed, right? So I did. And the teacher noticed all these stripes on my legs and my back. I said, what happened? I said, I can't really talk about it. They said, well, you have to go to the office. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. And they said, well, we have to call your dad. I said, that's really not a good idea. I said, the minute you call my dad, this is going to get worse. It's the 70s. I mean, what did we know back then? But they did. They contacted my dad. Of course, they told him what they saw. And man, that started the descent into me not wanting to go home. So I knew that night I'm going to get it, right? Well, it's going to be bad. So I'm wasting time getting home, and the later it gets, the more trouble I know I'm going to get into. But I want to walk through that door. So it's like 6 o'clock at night, and I'm standing right outside my door, not wanting to go in, and the time's ticking later and later and later until I just couldn't. I had to go in. So that was part of that whole thing that you were saying. Did you tell anybody? Well, my close friends knew, but there was other ways that other people did find out, and I didn't really want that because I knew the more that people knew, the more I was going to get it at home, and things would get worse from there, right?
Yeah. Wow. Like, I'm glad you got away though. But to say, Miss Teresa Varies right here. Hello, Don, Darren, and Chris. Happy to be tuning in. Hello, Teresa. Glad you're tuning in and hanging out with us today. We got more time to chit chat this time around. The 1 hour, I just felt like I was trying to force feed everyone.
Yeah.
Man, I have so much questions. But awesome. But yeah, so you made your escape, which we're all thankful for. You know, you didn't end up on a milk cart. You know, I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. And so you made it to the head of the Lake Reservation, Vernon, British Columbia. And go ahead, you can lead us into your discovery of your self-identity. That's what it seems like, huh? Go ahead.
That was pretty wild. I went out there twice. And the first time I was a teen, and life was life. I was a mess anyway. I partied very well. It's a bad thing, but I didn't really have anything holding me there. There was no obligations. School was like, whatever. And I still had this longing, and I was still very, very broken. Coming out of that household, I didn't know it at the time until my early 20s. I didn't even know what PTSD was.
Oh, yeah. It
wasn't really a term back then, but I just knew things weren't right. So when I went out to Vernon, I hitchhiked out there. It was a heck of a time. It's about 3,300 kilometers. It's a trip. When I got out there, there was a lot of culture shock. But that was the first real instance, aside from my Aunt Jake, that I really witnessed true acceptance. And I wasn't prepared for that. And that was the other thing, being on the street and being a mess, was there were families in the interim as a teenager that would take me in, friends, right? And their families. And I would always screw it up intentionally because I couldn't handle the niceties. I see normal families and they're sitting down and they're talking love talk and they're discussing and it's a family. And I didn't know how to handle that. That wasn't normal to me. So I would do something to get kicked out. And once I was kicked out, I was like, whew, you know what? I can breathe again. This is normal. The chaos is normal. That's a bad place to be in. And I know I'm not the only one that's ever been in that place. But when you're a teenager, you can't really grasp what is going on. So when I went to the res, it's the first time I was fully accepted. There was no question. They knew who my great-grandfather was. They knew who my grandmother was. Didn't matter that my skin was more white than it was red. I didn't know what that was like. I didn't really know how to deal with it. So I stayed there for a while. I met a bunch of people. I went back to the Toronto area. Bunch of stuff happened. My best friend ended up committing suicide. After all that, and he was addicted to crack at the time. It was really rough. I had nothing to hold me there. I had no family, and I said, I'm going back. I'm going back. And that's what I did. I went back to the res, met a pile of other cousins and aunties, and then I got to actually visit quite a few times with my great-grandfather, who was the medicine man. That kind of freaked me out, because when I went to meet him, I brought a blanket and tobacco and wanted to talk with him, and he had said he expected me. Nobody knew I was making the trip from Ontario to BC, yet what I looked like, but he had said I'd been expecting you. And he said, I actually expected you sooner, but you were delayed somehow. But here you are. Freaky. And that was more freaky than my life in the occult prior, because he's not this big evil dude. He's this old man that's very wise, that there was no strings attached with him. You come and talk to me and we'll talk, right? You're my great-grandson and let's talk, which was awesome. So I got to hear a lot of different perspective, and 98% of the time I was with him, I was listening. I wasn't asking questions, and it was weird out there to ask a question meant you weren't ready for the answer.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I listened a lot.
yeah, you're like asking questions like a little kid again.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So let's get Teresa's last name right. Let's see. It sounds like Fires, but V. That's pretty cool. Vires. That's pretty cool. And we got Heidi. I'm not gonna say her last name. I might butcher it. Go Hill. So, hi, Darren and Chris. Much love from Boulder, Colorado. Hello. How's the weather in Colorado? Thanks for tuning in, guys. Yeah. So you started meeting your grandpa, who's a medicine man.
He was.
They would call a shaman. So
yeah,
you can. So what is the first things that you would witness him doing or seeing, like that really doubt reality, you know, like what you've been taught your whole life, and you start seeing the separation of spirit and this physical realm, you know, that type of deal?
The things that he told me were amazing. It would make me reflect always back towards myself.
Yeah.
He was a very wise guy. Not a wise guy, a wise man.
Yeah. A lot of wisdom.
It was very comfort. There were times when I would talk with him and we would meet for a few hours. And then when I left, I would think back on it. It was like gone. It's like I couldn't recollect here what we talked about, but here it resided, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. You wrote it down in your heart.
It's like it just went straight in, and here it wasn't cognizant. It was just part of, I don't know if you say a download, but I accepted it and received it and then moved with it. It was very strange. And so my whole experience out there was this white kid learning native ways and being around a bunch of native folks that accept you as native, and they're talking to you as if they would that you were there years before.
Like they've known you your whole life type of deal.
Right.
Huh?
And so there was terms I needed. Natives speak different. They talk different. The way they say things have a different meaning sometimes. You got to slow down and just really listen. And me being I'm always asking questions. I had to really dig into what that meant for me. How did that complete me? So where does that leave me now? You start learning the ways, but it's a walk the talk type of thing, right? Yeah. So I would learn how to track, and I learned how to hunt and stuff, which was really strange because when I was in Toronto, I never thought I would ever hunt. I mean, it was always one of those things. I'm never going to kill anything. I mean, that's ridiculous. But when I moved out there, it was like, no, we've been doing this for eons. This is how it's done, and this is why it's done, and this is how, if you're called to do this, how you're supposed to do this with respect, and to learn as much as you can about this before you go out and you take a life, because you're not permitted just to go out there and start shooting stuff. It's not the way it works. So I got to learn a lot and became a new person. It completed who I was, and my attitude did change. Prior to that, there were times where I was very, very scared, very meek. Wouldn't really stand up. I mean, I got into fights and stuff, but not in this way. When I came back from Vernon the very first time, I was completely different. And we had an altercation with a bunch of people. Me and my buddy Sean were walking down. We were young. We were partying, carrying cases of beer. And I had this big, long poncho. My hair was like down to here. It was in braids in the top. I had feathers and stuff. And somebody said, "Look at the dumb effing Indian," right? And I stopped. I said, "You talking to me?" And there were a bunch of black dudes having a big party. And Sean said, "Chris, shut up. Like, this is not the place. Like, there's like 50 of these guys." I said, no. Who said that? And Sean's looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And I walked right into the house. The head honcho came. Obviously, it was a gang I didn't know at the time. And he said, "What's the problem?" And I told him exactly what happened. I said, "We're going to have an issue right now." And he turned to all his guys and he said, "Who's the guy with the big mouth? Because you're going to apologize to this guy." I don't know what just happened, but it happened, and I walked out of there alive. Anyway, that's the way I carried myself after. And Sean was like, "What happened to you out there? Like, what happened? Like, you're not the same person." I said, "I found myself. I was looking for the door. I found the door. There I was. I needed that completion." Yeah.
Awesome.
It was very strange. It's still strange to look back on it in hindsight, but it paved the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you have your identity, your true identity, right?
It was.
So yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. Way back in the early 80s, late 80s, right? Yeah. So you can bring. So what's your first paranormal experience or any type of cryptid experience? Where does that start coming into your story?
Well, the paranormal experiences happened very young. I was trained to astral project.
The occult stuff.
Yeah. And before there was the terms there are today, there were different practices. They call it remote viewing nowadays. It didn't exist in the 70s, but I was taught to do a pile of different things. And my dad was into some nasty stuff. He was into more Crowley type occult, which is not good. A lot of chaos magic.
A lot of sex magic.
Well, I believe so, but I wasn't witness to that. But I know my mom endured a lot of stuff. Yeah. So he even got into Anton LaVey type Satanism, which is really, it's kind of Satanism light. It's kind of a bit of a charade. His books were really ridiculous. I can't take that seriously. Although there's a part of Anton LaVey's life that's completely kept secret. And if you know what occult means, you know why. Occult is in the hidden, right? So, but he did have those things. And yeah, it is what it is. But those were the first things I started noticing. And he had a lot of idols. He even collected a lot of Nazi memorabilia. And the reason why was, well, he did idolize Hitler. But the reason why was because of the occult and Hitler and the whole Nazi. Yeah. A lot of that's missed today. Even in the Nuremberg stuff, the seat of Satan, right? The throne of Satan in Pergamum. Well, they brought that over to Germany and they recreated it. And that's where he gave his speeches from. Those big speeches you see with all the fires lit, where he was speaking was supposed to be the blazing bull, where the bull was. But that's a replica of the throne of Satan, right? In Pergamum.
Yeah, I remember hearing a story. Yeah, like some of the Nazis that were there, they're saying that whenever Hitler would get done with his speeches, he would be like his eyes would be glossy and he'd be gasping for air, like he was possessed every time he would go
well
on stage.
Well, they said Hitler was usually doped up on your first version of meth. I think you can see. I seen a bunch of videos of him, like he's twitching his arms, like he's real spazzing out. Like, yeah,
right. Yeah, he's lit.
Just doped up. Yep.
Yeah,
but
that society. Oh, sorry, Darren. Go ahead.
But then again, yeah, Hitler was. They were really into the occult.
Very much.
You know, like very much. They're into. There's so it go so long to like space and like. Man, it's a huge mess. UFOs, you know, stuff like that, and
it is. I mean, you go from one extreme to the other with the Nazis. You go from the Vril maidens.
Yeah, those guys with the long hair,
the breeding program. Yeah. You've got the Black Sun type thing. The Holocaust was like a huge sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right. And it still goes back to the throne, the Pergamum. Sacrifice as many people as possible for power. Right. Horrible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's parts of society, like they like to say that Hitler was a monster. And I understand. I don't want to downplay the depravity of humankind either, though. He is human. Do humans do horrible stuff? You bet we do, and we have throughout history. So I don't want to let human race off of what Hitler did and just push it off of just evil and just this, because
it's human nature.
It is part of human nature. Right?
Yeah. It's a lot of human nature behind that, and how sensitive we are to the other realm. You know, the other
and how much it's around us all the time. We may not see it, we may not smell it, but it's there. Right. And that's where you get into, perhaps we can just say ultra-dimensional beings. Biblically, you would say angels. And according to scripture, there are two factions of angels, and one part fell and the other part stayed with God. And then you go back to Genesis 6 and you read about the giants. Well, that's getting into my wheelhouse, about the giants and the giants, even in North America. And that whole thing, wow. So who were the Vril maidens really in touch with, right? And Hitler ripped off a lot of symbols that weren't even his symbols. The swastika wasn't his. That goes back
I was just way
before. He just kind of ripped it off and turned it into his little thing, right?
Yeah,
that's what occult people do, right? They assimilate different things and they come up with their own magic.
Yeah, they do. It's always that the four sacred winds is very, very sacred. You know, it's even used in our Navajo culture as well. And we also have a lot of stories of giants as well. And what kind of stories you guys have, your Algonquin stories?
There's so many. We don't have as many mounds here in Canada, but in the States, you guys got a lot of mounds. And everybody I've talked to about the mounds, I have never heard one tribe say, we own these. I've heard the opposite. These weren't ours. These were here before we were here. That freaks me out. Who were these people? What's with the 6 toes and 6 fingers and different rows of teeth? I mean, and that goes out globally. Did they circumvent the globe well before the history that we know of? I mean, our indigenous culture was an oral tradition. It wasn't written down. And that was almost wiped out like 100-something years ago, right? They weren't allowed to speak. Thank goodness that's being preserved as much as possible, you know? So the mounds, where do these skeletal remains go? I've heard so many accounts. I've talked to people, researched it. And there's things that are found, but where are they now? Do the Smithsonian own it? Do the elites own it? Do the adepts of the elites own it? These people that I was once in contact with. It seems to be that there is a global cover-up of not just giants, but history as we know it. We like to teach in school about Columbus discovering America. Well, were already people here eons before Columbus. How can you discover something that there's people already here? And he wasn't the first here. Vikings were here well before him. If you go down to South America and you check out the Olmecs, they were supposedly the first people on South America. Now, they don't look South American. They almost look Asian. That's some stuff that we really need to dig in and say, what is history? What is our history? And why is it being kept from us? And why does it seem like there's certain adepts that know this history that's covering it up? What are we missing out on? And there goes back to when I was young. I'm still searching for that complete. Okay, so where that's still part of my history and your history. Let's dig into that. Yeah,
exactly. Real quick, guys. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you. And we got Teresa here. Nailed it. Grateful to be hearing your guest share with such openness, courage at Chris. Yeah, thank you. And then we got right here. TG, she said, yeah. And Navajo, that means Navajo is kind of means like, oh, scary, you know what I mean? Like,
awesome.
Yeah. And we have a question here from Eugene Vasquez, Black Market Trade Talk. You know,
I don't know.
I heard of that. Yeah, like a Bigfoot's body was at some celebrity's house, like a stuffed. Like a huge, giant Bigfoot.
Yeah, I heard that. And man, there's so much weird stuff that who knows? They probably use it for purposes. I don't know, try to reincarnate the freaking body. I don't know. Also heard like some stuff on like TikTok where the elites were eating mermaids, man. Like what like what are we supposed to do with this? Yeah, dude, it's crazy. So what kind of stories do they have on the giants? What was one of the stories that you were told?
I wasn't told stories of legends of giants, but I was told of several skeletons that were found upon the inception of British Columbia and early Canada, when they were blowing up stuff trying to make roadways and railways, that they did discover. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, over here, like back in the day, there's a story like we had a huge dispute like within our tribe. And the males went on the other side of the Colorado River, and the females stayed on the other side. And the ET, the holy people we call them, they came down. They seen the dispute, so they came down on both sides of the party. Half of them went to males, half of them females, and they made giants with the 6 digits, 6 toes, extra rows teeth. Yeah, so we got them all over, and that's one of the things that they told us, to never be apart. We have to always be together, as one, the male and the female, because we don't want to get that repeat of the giants to come down again and to destroy the earth again. And over time, those giants, we had wars with them. Other tribes had wars with them, and eventually, for us, they intermarried in our tribe. And my wife, she actually has a giant clan. Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah, I always tell her, let's get a DNA. Let's do your mouth swab. Let's check it out. Yeah, my son's huge, man. His hand's freaking huge, man. So we'll see how big he's gonna get.
That's crazy.
You also got your red-haired giant too, of the two heroes, twin heroes they killed. That was supposedly, that guy. He's not too far from where I stay, like his body. I guess they say that like that's his body up there. He has a small head. He has a little hat right there towards Grant's. And the story goes is he was just eating the people, and the two twin heroes had to go and take care of him,
lay him out, put him in the
lay him out. Yeah, and all that lava next to Grant's, that's supposed to be his blood. So dude. So there's old stories like that. Even the giants been around.
Check it out, Darren. Chris here. He's seen a foot track, along the river, right, when you were hunting of a 6-toed giant, right?
Yeah. Well, the foot was about my size, shoed. So as far as a Bigfoot would go, that's quite small. But there's plenty of these. And I'd fished there not that long before for catfish, and the river was really low, and all that clay, silty bottom was exposed. And I was driving past, and I looked over, and I thought it was bear tracks. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I got out, and they were footprints, and the one consistently did have 6 toes.
Wow.
At first, you think, is it like a foot slide? But
yeah,
it looked pretty clear. Like I sent those pictures to you, Donovan. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I should upload it. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Darren. You had a question.
Which side of was the extra digit on? Was it the big toe or left side? Oh, okay. Huh. Wow. So I guess he walks around without no shoes.
Giant. Apparently, but
wow.
His feet can't fit in shoes. That's why. But it might have been a baby. Might have been a little baby because we have them. I was speaking with a lady through TikTok Live, and she's out in Logan, and she found like a giant 6-toed foot track outside her house. I guess it came down from the mountain, and it was looking in the windows, trying to look at them.
And man, that's just unsettling, man.
Yeah, it was during the blizzard too. It was snowing really bad. It came down during the blizzard, and it went back up. They seen the tracks. And remember Tom Bennett? We spoke with. He's the one that's seen a giant figure too at the river around near that area. So like I always tell everyone that the Rocky Mountains is like a highway. They come down from Alaska, all the way down to Colorado. Yeah, and then they go back up.
My great grandfather would tell me that they migrate, and he would say that they migrate due to their breeding patterns. That they would take that same migration from Alaska and follow those Rockies down and then kind of branch out from there. But another thing that Darren had said about red hair is there are several tribes, especially in Canada, that I know of, some in the Kootenays, where the Indigenous have auburn hair and green eyes and different color skin. Not all of them, but there seems to be a trait throughout Canada in certain areas.
Yeah, my grandma had the red hair. My great grandma had the blue eyes. I got red here and there. So,
this used to be red.
Yeah. My first Bigfoot I seen had red hair.
Did it?
Yeah, it was a giant sucker. I had no idea it was Bigfoot. I was 18 years old. Yeah, I walked up like 50, 60 yards from it, and it was screaming, and it was doing. If you look up Ron Moorhead Sierra sounds, that whole thing, it was doing all the samurai chatter, and it was swaying like this, and it started going like, and I stopped because the whole time I thought it was a human, And what about you? Seen Bigfoot out in your area, huh, Chris?
I have. My first encounter was mid-90s. I was on a hunting trip. It was a canoe hunting trip. We were way in the bush. Awesome. But that was my first encounter. That scared the crap right out of me. Subsequently, I have had other encounters, which is unsettling. For me, it's unsettling because such an elusive thing as Sasquatch, how can you have more than one encounter and in different provinces? So you start to think, am I nuts? Is there something about this whole interaction where you might be more susceptible to them because there's something that draws you? I used to be of the mindset that that Sasquatch was an animal, just a cryptid. I'm not so sure anymore. I'm not so sure about some of these other higher experiences that also have the strange lights with them, like in Louisiana, what they call the fifole. I'm not so sure that Sasquatch is just an animal. According to my great grandfather, he would call them like an extra dimensional shaman, that they can appear and reappear. That's unsettling too, because that would mean multiple encounters then could be possible. Maybe they are spiritually attached to you after that first encounter. Now that's twice as unsettling as bumping into a cryptid by accident. Because after the first experience, I didn't want a second experience. I don't want to see them again. Even though I've got a tattoo on my arm of a Haida buckwes, which is Bigfoot.
Buckwes.
And when I met with my great grandfather, I mean, he had told me that there's different spirit animals that kind of make up part of your characteristics. Because at one time we were bipedal and quadrupedal, and we were in the midst of human and animal before we became bipedal. That we had that. So there's certain animal characteristics and spiritual connections you may have with one. I was told then, before I even had an experience, and I've never uttered this to anybody but my family. I haven't even uttered this to Will, which is a common friend that we both have.
Yeah.
That he did tell me that this Sasquatch was part of my animal characteristic, and that it's a very, very rare thing. I didn't put any heat into that at the time. I don't even know what I think of it now, being almost 55, and this happened in my 20s. So the more I look and research into Sasquatch, even with my own encounters, but I love hearing other people's encounters, is what if we have this wrong? What if this isn't like an elk or deer and just merely animal creation? What if this is spiritual? What if this is ultra-dimensional or interdimensional? That changes the game. I mean, for us to assume it's a planet, that is an assumption. We don't know. Just because it looks like us doesn't mean it is. So that's the disturbing part, is maybe they are more attached to us once you have an encounter. Maybe there's an attraction there.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think you have being a part of this occult business draws that these Bigfoot would draw closer to you?
I have thought about that. That's unsettling, but I have thought.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing. Like people that have these Sasquatch encounters or anything else, they usually have seen something like a ghost or a spirit. Like it's. I think kind of the veil is already kind of open to that person once they see like a spirit or something like that, and more likely you more or less see something else, down the line. It's really odd, but I think everybody here had Sasquatch encounter. So I'm no
Tell
different.
Us about yours. Tell us about yours.
Mine?
Yeah. Go ahead. Lead us into it.
The first one, I was on a hunting trip with family. I was just newly married. This was in Alberta, and we were canoeing, and we we're going to find some cool spots. We'd never been down this river. Kind of stop overnight, different spots, see what deer we could find. It was a new moon, and the Monday would have been September 15th, and that would have opened up for elk. So there's still that leeway that if we did see elk, we could probably prolong this and get that done, because I have my tags. So first night, uneventful. We just kind of chilled out, ate something. We got there late. Next day, we went off, caught a pile of fish, which was great. We went off the main river on a tributary. Again, we don't know this area at all. Followed the tributary for quite a ways. It got really low, and there were some sandbars on either side, but mostly on this east side. And there was fresh elk sign. They had just been through there that morning, and this was hours later. So we pulled over and we said, what are we going to do? It's Saturday. Do we continue looking for deer, or do we camp here, get on this trail, and push this till the Monday morning and see if we can't get an elk? Perhaps even a satellite bull. We'll call him in. We might not get the herd bull, but I mean, this is sizable. This is sizable, man. There's a lot of them. So that's what we did. We pitched tents, got our gear. My father-in-law went this way. Father-in-law, sister-in-law went that way. My brother-in-law went this way, and I hung way to the south a little bit, following a game trail. Followed it as long as I could. It got really, really thick. So thick that you were really bushwhacking, right, to get through there. It was a pain. You're getting sweaty, you're getting a little lathered up. You don't want to get too lathered up in the bush, just in case something happens and you're stuck and you're wet. You don't want to be sweaty. But I was getting lathered up. I heard these sounds, what I told Will when I was on the show the very first time years ago, was it almost sounded like, when Gollum coughs his name in Lord of the Rings, he goes, oh yeah. That's what I heard. And it almost, when you're in the bush and you hear grouse and you hear their plumage, and you can feel that. That's what it was like, but it was single cough. It sounded like a really loud cough, but you could feel it bounce off you. And I got really kind of, what the heck is that? And then this stench hit. And it freaked me out. And at first, I mean, the first thing in my head is there a moose carcass around and I'm going to bump a bear off a carcass, or I'm starting to get a little bit tripped out. And then I started to panic. Mm-hmm. That's not like me to panic, especially, you know, in the forest. You know, if you bump into a bear, you're not going to run because you're going to be supper. I started to panic and I stopped and I froze. And my eyes are fixed right ahead of me. And I'm looking through the bush and I could see it kind of opens up on this side. And then there's a big thicket over here. And I'm almost at the end of that really thick bush, just peering out. I'm watching and I'm waiting and I'm not moving a muscle. And the more I'm not moving, the more freaked out I'm getting. And I'm getting so freaked out, I can see the cold breath, my heart pumping the breath out of my mouth. And I'm starting to lose it. It's just irrational fear. And I look behind me, I take a step and look, and as soon as I turn my head, everything in front of me exploded. There is multiple things moving. And I whipped around, and this sucker right in front of me, right where I was staring and didn't see anything, a second, must have stood up. And this thing was freaking huge. And he was looking at me with this expression of pure hatred. And the expression was like, I don't know if you're a movie buff, but there's a part in The Exorcist where she's turning her head around and it finally comes to the end. That was the expression of pure, I hate you. And the eyes were peering. And I was like, I did what any hunter shouldn't do. I ran. I ran as fast as I could, and I did not stop. And I was panicked the whole time. I thought they were chasing me. They're beside me. I just kept going and kept going. It scared the living crap out of me. It scared me so bad. Before I went down to get down to camp, I couldn't go down the bank. I'm looking behind me and I'm looking everywhere. I was so scared I couldn't even get to safety. It was completely irrational. I probably, when I was looking at my campsite for probably 20 minutes, and then I veered down there and I paced and I put my gun away. I had one in the pipe with my safety on and a full clip. Last thing in my mind was shooting this thing. Didn't even cross my mind. Didn't even cross my mind. So that night came, I didn't tell anybody. My brother-in-law came back from his thing and he did say something like, anything strange happen out there? You hear anything? I'm like, no. Why? Did you hear something? He goes, I don't know. That's as far as that conversation went that day. That night we were asleep. It was a new moon. There was zero moon. It was clear as a bell. It was quite crisp. Mm-hmm. Everybody's asleep. I'm trying to sleep. I finally kind of doze off. You know, when you're half in and half out, you're asleep, but you can hear everything around you kind of still. Yeah. This scream, I don't even call it a scream. I call it a yowl because it wasn't a yell and it wasn't a howl. This scream happened right across because we camped right on the sandbar. Right on the creek. Yeah. Right across. This scream was so freaking loud. I bolted upright and I look over and my brother-in-law is like, what the heck? And this thing went on for so long. Just one long, enormous scream.
Longer than 23 seconds, huh? And then it gets louder, huh?
Holy crap. It reverberated the bush, which is impossible because it's an expansive, right?
Yeah.
Freaked me out. So the next day we get in our canoes, we're going down, we did some fishing, caught some really big walleye, which is awesome. Saw some wolf tracks and there was a bit of a game trail. We didn't know where we were going. So we're like, we're going to have to get out of here and find our way back to where we parked the truck. We don't even know where we are. So my brother-in-law and I were elected to go find our way out. So I packed my gun and stuff and my father-in-law's like, I don't think you should take a weapon with you. I'm like, excuse me? He goes, no. If you find a farmer's house or something, I mean, you're going to walk up to his house with a weapon in your hand. I said, it's hunting season. This is what happens around here. I'm not going to go through the bush without a weapon. Are you kidding me? He was adamant. So we didn't. We had our knives on us. We didn't have our weapons. Freaky. So we follow these game trails until we do find a normal trail. We follow that trail all the way up. Halfway, you're going uphill and there's trees on either side. something was chirping back and forth to each other. I'd love to say for sure it was Bigfoot. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we ended up making our way out. We found a farmer's house. He said, well, where are you guys? I kind of explained, I follow this trail, and then you follow this, and the trail peters out. And then there's old log cabins that are just completely dilapidated. He goes, oh, I know exactly where you are. So he took us, got our canoes out. He said that we're close to a place called Dog Eat Prairie. And this was a place, turn of the century, that was there, that was a native and white community.
Oh, dang.
No.
Losing you there, Chris.
Oh no, he was having a storm earlier.
Oh yes, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. Hey, okay. Oh no, we lost you, man.
I thought they came and took
us. Okay, so you were at that community white and indigenous
Dog Eating Prairie. Yeah. So that's where this guy figures that we were. So the encounter happened a little bit down the road from that. But that was my first encounter. I've had a couple since, which are very, very strange. And one which you had said about the chatter, I had heard. This wasn't a visual, but we were having issues where we were. And we lived right abutted onto the Niagara Escarpment in Ontario, which is this huge expanse of bush that has pretty much been untouched. They won't allow development in there because it's still pristine escarpment from creation, right? So our property was right next door to it, pretty much part of it. If a tree fell on my property, I had to ask permission to chop it down because it was part of the conservation, right? Ooh, we used to go for walks in there all the time. That place was strange. There was something weird about that place because I've got a really good sense of direction, especially in the bush.
Yeah.
This place, though, everything looked the same. And you could turn me around in the bush and say, okay, which way is north? And I can pick it out and I can get my way out of there. This place was different. I overshot my exit many times in this bush. But there were weird things that happened. And the one time with the chatter was I had ended up calling somebody from the Ontario Sasquatch community there. And I had them on the phone. And I said, listen to this. And I put them on speaker and I held my phone out my back door because I was standing on my porch. And it sounded like a Japanese girls' choir chattering back and forth.
Oh, man.
They came out that night and they went looking around. There's no way I'm going to go out in the bush at night hearing that. Not happening. Not happening. But they did come out that night. But yeah, we had several encounters. The other encounter was in Alberta as well with my son. This was 2020. We went on a hunt, and we usually go a couple days earlier where it's rifle hasn't opened up in this zone and it's still archery. So I'll bring my archery gear. We'll go scout, see what we see, and get ready for the next day for rifle. And if I do see something with bow, I'm taking a shot. So we get there. My son and I were just by ourselves. We look in an area and I hear some, I don't know what I heard, but because I'm thinking hunting, I'm not, honestly, even though I've had multiple encounters, I'm not thinking Bigfoot when I'm out in the bush. I'm definitely not looking for him. So I'm looking at sign and there's rubs on trees, which I'm looking at. And there's one that was really, really high. And I'm like, what the heck is that? That must be an elk or something because a whitetail would have to stand up on his haunches to get that high, way over my head. So we go down a little bit following this cut line. There's several rubs and scrapes, which is good. We get to the corner of this area and I look through the thicket and the thicket looks like there's highways. I'm looking. I said, I think it opens up back there. So we start to walk through. It gets thicker, and it's like an illusion. It doesn't open up. I'm like, I'm not going back there. So I'm starting to get a little bit panicky. We turn the corner, and I just get this oppressive feeling, like compression. And I look at my son and said, "You want to go up there?" He's like, "Not really." I'm like, "All right, we'll turn around." So we turn around, backtracking. And I'm looking right where that huge scrape was in that tree, that big rub, not scrape, I'm sorry. I get down on my knees and looking at some tracks that had been there probably the night before. As soon as I'm down and my son's in front of me facing the fence line, here's this huge oh my goodness, how do I describe it? It's like air, snort, cough, all at the same time, like an immense amount of air being forced through clenched teeth and open nostrils. So loud, I instinctively thought it was an elk. I thought I blew an elk right here, right? Whoa! And I looked up and didn't see a thing. My son's like, what the heck just happened? And these two, whatever it was, we didn't see them, were crashing through the bush, screaming as they go. This is daytime. This is just before noon.
Wow.
Screaming. And you can hear them circle in the bush, just knocking crap over, right? And doing this screamy cough thing this entire time. I didn't even think. I have a crossbow on my back. My son's got a 22 mag lever in case we see some grouse. That's all we got. Those aren't really weapons to compare to these suckers, right?
Yeah.
So finally, this goes on for probably 10 minutes. Finally, I click in. Let's get my phone out. So I go in and I take my phone out and I hold my phone up and I'm taking video. It almost completely stopped. I can send you the video. I'm swearing though. You can hear this thing and it almost sounds like a freaking monkey. Sounds like a monkey raven. But it stopped. And yeah. And my son is beside me going, Dad, there's one coming up right beside me. So one was facing me. It seemed like one came around and circled and stopped in front of me, but in the bush. And the other one continued around quiet to flank us. And my son was getting freaked out. And I'm like, did we just spook some wild hogs? Like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
Didn't really equate. We buggered off, got the hell out of there, had lunch. And then the next morning comes around and my son's like, we're not going back there. He said, you're darn right. We're going to go back there. He's like, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there. I said, we're going back there. So it's like 6 a.m. We get up. I take him out there. Sun's coming up. And we just go throughout the area slowly. And I'd taken pictures. There's a live tree, probably that thick around. And it was bent like a hairpin. And just beside it, here's this huge, long, looked like a 9-foot beaver dam lodge that probably went on for 15, 20 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge.
And the freaky thing is, there was no deer. That was our honey hole. 5 deer up, 5 deer down. You're done in half an hour. You're going home. Nothing. Yeah. Nothing. There was no deer. There was nothing.
Chased them out.
The next day, I ate them out. They're gone. I think they ate them.
Yeah.
But we went there the next year. And as we're going, this place had been there forever, right? The forestry company had been in there and taken everything out.
They know.
A complete huge highway of trees gone. That section. And that had been there for decades and decades and decades and decades. Nobody had heard that they were planning on, I don't even know if they were. And the freaky thing is I talked to another guy because there was a cabin for rent close to there, and I was going to rent it just for hunting season, right? And he had said, there's another guy interested, but he wants it for Bigfoot stuff. And I think he's a freak. I said, excuse me? What did he tell you? He had an encounter, saw one cross the road just south of where we had our encounter the same year. I don't know what to make of these things, but I mean, there's been several experiences and it's still unsettling relaying them to you because it sounds like, blob squatch syndrome, right?
Oh, no. We understand what you mean. I've experienced a lot of similar things you have. And, I took my 9-year-old son with me on one of these squatching adventures, and he never wanted to come with me again because they threw some pile of rocks near us, and they were running around us, and we felt the ground shake. And it sounded like a helicopter propeller was around us.
That's terrifying. Yeah,
and one of my buddies, he said that Bigfoot threw a huge log at him and his brother. I guess he bent down to check his chainsaw, and he heard the huge tree flying in through the air. Boom! It smacked the tree right next to him. If he was standing, he would have been dead. He said he bent down and he heard it come. Boom! And he said that after he threw it, it was making a sound like the Hulk, like rah, rah, like like a kind of similar what you were saying. But he said it sounded like the Hulk screaming, and they looked down underneath the overgrowth, you know, down at the bottom. They seen huge legs, and like the skin was like black. And when it ran off, he said that the ground was shaking and it sounded like a helicopter propeller going away from them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we have some unsettling stories here on the Navajo Nation, but it's really nice to hear another correlation on another area. Maybe they might be the same, maybe they might be different. Who knows? You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, Chris. Oh, Darren, you got any questions?
Oh yeah, Chris. Not to go back on your first story, your first encounter, but did you ever talk to your brother-in-law to see what he meant by anything weird going on? Did you ever talk to him?
I did, but he never really got into it. You know, but there were times when we were younger, when we still were both drinking, kind of thing. We get into the beers a bit, and he'd say, "Hey, remember that time?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "What do you think that was?" And he'd bring that up often. "What do you think that was?" I'm like, "Well, I can tell you what it wasn't." But we never really got into it. So at first he thought, I don't believe it. But then he'd start with this, "What do you think that was?" Because we were both there. I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I think it was. Something I saw." Right. And even that, here's something that might freak you out a little bit.
Oh,
and having that visual, there's times, especially now in hindsight, and I'm thinking about what my great grandfather said and all this other stuff, that I question myself. Did I see it? Did it project itself to me? There's this amazing, like, this can't be, because this is something that shouldn't exist. So you're kind of not computing what's going on.
Right.
But then there's that other thing that my grandfather said, that they can appear and disappear at will. That they're like shamans. I can see how certain stories, when you read them and they say that they've appeared out of nowhere and they're gone out of nowhere. Maybe so. Yeah. Maybe there's more to them. I mean,
and also, can you describe a bit more about that Bigfoot you seen, man? Once you said the whole exorcism thing, man, the whole lady spinner, I just seen that and I was like, oh man, that's like, screw that. Like, what the hell you? Can you go back and give a description on this that Bigfoot?
Well, I didn't hang around long, so I can't give you a positive ID that it was somebody I knew. It was massive. It was dark. It was as wide as it was thick, and the skin color was like an ashen gray, almost corpse-like, like a greeny gray. Almost corpse-like, but way more gray. And the eyes were absolutely fixated on me, pierced, and its teeth were just kind of, and it was just standing there like this massive, massive hulk of a thing. And thinking back on it, I don't think my weapon would have done anything to it but ticked it off. I just don't know. Like, I've shot bear, elk. I know what weapons do. I don't think this would have done much, but he would have grabbed my gun and probably wrapped it around my head.
Just aim for the eye. 1 second, Darren. Yeah. 1 second, Darren. We got Mary Magdalene, Nathan Young. Saying, hi, Darren.
You gotta give thanks to her. She gave birth to me. So.
Oh, hey! Thank you for bringing a good co-host here, good friend Darren. Thank you. And Eugenio Vasquez. Funny how when the story gets real interesting, the internet cuts out.
Right? I was just gonna say that too. I was just gonna bring that up. Just a cliffhanger.
Sparky's Paranormal and Outdoors. Hey, my dudes, Don and Darren. What's up? What's up, man? Then we got Acknowledged and Unknown. Hi, all. Hello. How you guys doing? Yep. Says that everyone don't forget to sub, hit that notification bell, and smash that like button. Yes, sir. Follow that. Give our AC. Oh, hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, at least it's good to know everyone's chatting on the chat. That's what's up.
Yeah.
So
Well,
wow. Love all these Bigfoot and paranormal lives. Soon, one day, we'll go somewhere 24/7. Love it. Oh man, but so when what could you tell us about the little people?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories about little people in the Okanagan. I've heard from several cousins about incidents they have had. Now, what I've been told about the little people, some people call them proto-pygmies.
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 Oh.
So everything I've heard about the little people is they're not friendly. They're not nice. They don't want to be seen. They don't want interaction, and they're very mischievous. My cousin had told me about a story that happened on the res. It was a kind of like this. It was a really bad storm, but it was at night, and he was taking the long way around because the roads were too slick and too bad. He got to a section where a tree had completely broken and covered the road, and he got out of his truck to figure out, can I move this? Can I push it with my truck? How am I going to get around this? Because I really don't want to go all the way back around the way I came through the slick stuff to see if I'm going to slide off the road or make it home. So he gets out of his truck and he goes to look at this down tree, and this little person came out from around of the tree and hissed at him and bore its teeth at him, and he pretty much crapped his pants, ran to his truck, reversed, and just bombed the heck out of there, not caring if he went off the road. Another instance happened. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
These little people. How did are they described out there? Are they just like the little goblins or little
humans?
How just little humans?
Little humans. Huh.
Yeah, that's a common
2 to 3 foot tall.
Yeah, and
looking like natives. Yeah, looking like natives. Oh, yeah.
Yes. And the weird thing is that they're not naked. They have clothing.
Their own style.
They have their own style. And that they do like they will stay in your abode somewhere, whether it's a shed, but they don't like to. I think it's our encroachment, probably.
Yeah.
But that they're not nice. They're not nice. And
go ahead. Sorry.
Are they described like dressing traditional in the Okanagan or
no, they don't wear the same regalia. No, but they do wear skins.
Like native style. Yeah. Two of my brother-in-laws, they came up on one at a mountain. They said that they were just dressed like, wild natives, and they had their bow and spear drawn at them. And they were just like, "What in the world?" And the other brother-in-law was already 50 yards already. He was like, "I'm out of
here." Yeah. They had. I heard one too out there. It's a place called Top of the World, New Mexico. And one guy, he said that him and his girlfriend and his uncle were going to find another uncle that went out to go chop some wood. He got lost, and it was during the winter. What he was saying is it was snowing. They knew where that guy was, but he just got lost out there. So as they were heading up, they drove over a little hill, and when the lights came down, they saw a little person. He described it as I don't know if you've seen that Cannibal Holocaust, how those tribal people in there look. He's like, the hair was real bushy and long, and he said he wasn't wearing no clothes. He was just wearing a little something crotch, just a little loincloth, carrying a stick, walking stick. Wow. And yeah, man, he said it was about maybe 3 feet tall, and he's like, man, I don't know. He was laughing about it. Man, it was the scariest thing I ever seen, man. It just seen something out of the blue like that, and it's like it wasn't wearing nothing, just a loincloth in the snow. Like, man, that's disturbing. Well, we got carried away. They're good.
So I was with my uncle at one instance, and we were going on a drive. I didn't particularly know what for. Just we're out in the res, and we took the long way in and out from where we were on the res to somewhere around Seminar. He took a pile of roads, and we ended up at one cliff face, and he had said, "That's where the little people used to live." And then he's just started telling me about the different places that they had little settlements back in the day. But it was matter of factly, he took me there. I don't know why. And pointed at this. He said, that's where the little people used to live. That was their main hub. That was their main center. And you could still see, whether this is he's trying to freak me out or not, you could still see where there was tiny little caves all through this cliff face. But he said nobody goes there. Not many people know where it is. It's not broadcast. It's not like it's on a main road that you can just drive and see it. But yeah,
it should be kept secret.
That's what he
right.
Yeah.
What could there was a body of one at one point in time that was found, and they had a ceremony and they cremated it and then buried the remains.
Oh, wow. Man. Wow.
Because they didn't want anybody. But he had said it had an abnormality of some sort. Something happened. Something with its nose was odd shapen or bulbous or something. But it was dead, and they ended up having a ceremony and cremating it, which I don't think is. I don't think cremation's a very common thing out there. So. Yeah.
What does your Algonquin say about the little people? Like any stories, oral traditions, or stories that you could share with us?
Well, the Algonquin, I think, have their own version. I think it's more like a Pukwudgie.
Pukwudgie. Oh yeah, Pukwudgies.
They also have another one out there. I thought it was called the Agawa, which was a strange kind of. How do I explain it? It almost had spines all over it. It almost looked like a dinosaur crossed with a porcupine, but it's almost reptilian like. But some of the stories I've heard that it's folklore have to do with the currents of Lake Superior, and other stories I have heard absolutely had nothing to do with that. It was a real creature that was very much. It had spines all over it, spines on its tail, and it had two big horns. So it does sound almost prehistoric. Now, whether that is left over from a different time frame, I don't know.
Probably, yeah. Do you think there's like a portal? Because like we have portals on the Navajo Nation, and maybe these guys come in and out. I have a witness that seen like a giant bat come out, a dog, little people. He said looked like gnomes. They would come out and they would be chatting back and forth, and that portal will open up and they will walk back in and it'll close up. He said it would start around 12 o'clock all evening, but he never stayed when the sun went down. He said he was scared of a dog that came out that was really fast. He had a AR-15. He was trying to shoot it. No luck, and he had a GoPro on top of his head the entire time. He said, no footage at all. It just went dead.
Wow, and you know what? That's another thing my father told me when I was very young about the occult was about the paranormal and electronic devices. There's this weird thing that goes on with it. Back when there was something called the Crookes tube. The Crookes tube is responsible for what we have now known as X-rays. The Crookes tube wasn't invented for scientific reasons that we know of. The Crookes tube was invented to communicate with the spiritual realm. You're not going to really see that in history, but that's why it was created. There is something to do with that type of communication where it can be a conduit or it can be closed. So when you said opened up, it makes sense that this could be technology or something that they're using to come in and come out of. A weird thing that happened here when we first moved to this property and bought this place is I had something out my back window. I've got pictures of it. It was huge, glowing. It wasn't tractors. It was wintertime. I almost got on my quad and booked out there in the middle of the night to see if I could get to it. But then I thought, probably not a smart idea. So I did it, and the next morning I went out there with my quad. Fresh snow, no tracks anywhere. Don't know what it was. A few days later, I'm going to the next town with my wife. We see this light screaming. It's probably 8 in the morning. It's daylight. Screaming across the field and went straight into the ground.
Oh, snap.
And I'm like, did you see that? Did you see that? She goes, I did see that. And I'm like, you did see that? Because I saw that. So when you're talking about portholes opening and closing, Do they only open and close for us, or are they always there for them?
Probably for them.
Right? It's
only time it's open for us is if you're a skinwalker, practicing skinwalker, and you can open portals anywhere, anytime you walk in.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff too, skinwalkers.
Yeah. Witchcraft. It's a death cult Navajo version, Freemasonry, Illuminati, all that stuff. Is just but Native American version. That's all it is. Yeah.
So you just triggered something for me. Here I am, I don't know, 9 years old, and I'm feeling smart alecky. So I said, my dad, we live in an apartment. I grew up in an apartment, so a condo, right? Apartment building, 8th floor. So I said, Dad, let's play hide and go seek. He's like, why? I'm like, well, let's play hide and go seek. Let's see, because I was really small and I can get into little corners. I thought I was pretty wise, right? So he said, sure, but they'll never find me. I'm like, it's an apartment. Like, where are you going to go? Only rule was you couldn't leave the apartment, right? You couldn't open the front door and leave. And we're on the 8th floor, so where are you going to go? So we played hide and go seek. Of course, I went first. Found me in a heartbeat. All right, so it's his turn. So he goes to hide. I looked everywhere. I looked in the closet. I looked I looked several places. I was standing by the front door. He's terrified of heights, so he didn't go to the balcony, although I checked the balcony. I looked off the balcony to see if he was hanging off the balcony. I checked everywhere. He wasn't in the apartment. I called for him and called for him and called for him, and he wouldn't come out. And then I heard this voice, just close your eyes. And I'm looking around, and I close my eyes. There he was. Honest to goodness. Honest to goodness.
Cheater. I was kidding.
That's another time he got rid of my warts. I had warts. I was going into grade 7. I got brought back home. I was going into grade 7, and I had warts on my hands, on my fingers and stuff. And I used to bite them off. It was horrible. Man. So I'm going into grade 7, which is middle school in Ontario, 7 and 8. And I knew there was going to be a bunch of new girls I didn't know. I didn't want to go to school with warts on my hand. It was horrible. And I tried everything to get rid of them. And he had said, do you want those warts gone? I said, of course. I've been trying to get rid of them. And he said, okay, give me your hands. And I put my hands in his, and he grabbed them. He closed his eyes. And he said, okay, it's done. They're still here. I woke up in the morning. They were gone.
That's pretty crazy.
That's a true story. They're gone.
So he had the ability to tap into the light and the white side, the white and the dark side of things, huh?
He did, and he would always say something that I know now, but in a different light than he did. He would, because he was an occultist, and plus he was into theosophy, which this other family I told you about was that Lucifer was the angel of light, and Lucius does mean light, and phosphorus. So I know what he was saying, but I took it as a different way when I was growing up. Now, having a different perspective of Lucifer, now I have a more complete understanding. I know what he was saying, but that's what he had always said when I was young. Lucifer is the angel of light and can present himself as the angel of light. Yet he chose to follow him, and I absolutely am on the opposite side of that. Yeah.
Wow. Your father, is your father still around, or
no? They're both
no.
And coincidentally, he was born on
Halloween. That's just wow.
We got cryptid country stuff. Road cryptids. We have little people too. Ours are nice but scared of us. Found their cave, boarded up with sticks overnight. Boarded up with sticks overnight. Interesting, right here. Let's see here. We got Cajun Bigfoot Whisperer. Oh, that's pretty cool name. Oh man, yeah. We got. See here. They're easygoing. Or here, Sparky's Paranormal and Outdoors. They're easygoing and observe unless you piss them off or something does. This was probably the one that got the one mad about the tree. Oh wow. That's pretty cool. See here, we got Carl. Let's see. Hi, Don and Darren. Hello. Hey, Carl. Yeah. Just giving a little shout out to our fans out here.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to ask is, the audience has any questions, go ahead. You're free to answer if you're live. We got questions for Chris. Anything you want to ask Chris right here? That'll be good because we are live. So
see here, love to hear how much is the same and the difference from native lands and Celtic. Oh wow, what do you say about that, Chris? Do you have any
I do have Celtic blood. Half of me is Celtic. I think there's a direct correlation between leprechauns and little. Sure. I think a lot of these things we talk about isn't just a North American thing. Although I do believe North America was one of the last frontiers. It was an undiscovered place for so long, which is an anomaly. So we've been told. I think there's so many crossovers. The giants are a global phenomenon. The flood story is a global thing. I can't tell you how many, including my great-grandfather, how many tribes in North America have a flood story, have a creation story, and there's so many crossovers. There was even prophecies here before contact about Christ. We can't just discount these things as just folklore, and they don't mean anything because it's not a written tradition; it's an oral tradition. Because I think oral tradition's even more important than written tradition. Although you have the convenience to look at the written, there's something for passing things down. Things got passed down because they were meaningful, not because they were just stories. Of course, certain things don't go out at night, but I think there's a lot of crossovers. I think the Celtic thing, because they have different type of monuments, although there has been some discoveries here in North America where it seems to almost parallel parts of Stonehenge and parts of these huge monoliths that are there. I find it very intriguing that there are several things that have survived history. Ziggurats all over, pyramids, and why is it only the so-called religious temples have stood the test of time and nothing around them is found? Why isn't there metropolises around these ziggurats and pyramids ever found? And why were the biggest supposedly religious temples? I find that intriguing. I find the recent things about Egypt very intriguing also. Something that we've all speculated about beneath the Sphinx and beneath the pyramids are things that are being kept from us. And now all the archaeological evidence and the archaeologists, they're saying we've got this wrong. The stories about the North Americas where there's stuff that parallels stuff from Egypt found in the Grand Canyon. Who was here? What were we taught as indigenous people here? There was a copper mining thing in North America at one point with the indigenous. And then for some reason, they went back to stone tools and then went back to copper for a time. But the second time of copper tooling didn't compare to the first copper mining tools. Why? Why did they abandon it, and who taught them? And the stories of fair-haired and fair-skinned people being here way predates Columbus.
The moon-eyed people.
Right.
Yeah. We have a quick one of our listeners here. TG, my grandfather would say the little people are here to protect you. If you see one, you're lucky. I would say your luck will change. If you feel sick or sad, you'll feel better. Oh yeah, so I guess it's pretty good, really good thing, huh? Changes the luck. Well, we better get a scratch lotto and see if we can find one, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh wow, we got another one here. Let's see here. Brian Cast, along the San Juan River here in northern New Mexico. People with farms say the little people steal from the crops are said to be very mean. LOL. They describe them as little trolls with long hair.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I heard about that. Stories from the San Juan. They have what do they call them? Water babies.
Yeah, water babies. Yeah, the Utes say the same thing. They call them the water babies.
Really?
Yeah, my uncle seen one when he was driving with a lot of people on the reservation one night. It was a full moon and their vehicle conked out on the dirt road, and they're sitting on top of the vehicle. It was really late and they were quiet. And he said he heard a whisper, like something fidgeting in the bush. There's no trees around. It's just high bushes, probably go like about 3 feet, 2 feet tall. So there's noises in the bush, and there's like a hill. So he's seen a little person come up on the hill, and it was looking around. And he made a little noise, a call, and all these little people were popping out of a hill one by one. Yeah, and they were going around to these bushes and digging underneath these bushes and harvesting something in these bushes. And the one guy that made the signal to tell him to come out, he was looking around, and my uncle said he let up a gasp, like what am I seeing? He's like, he let the gasp out, and the little guy was looking at it. He made another noise, and everyone froze. And then he said one of their buddies that left to go get help, he was walking back on the dirt road, and that little person made another noise, and all those people got back in single file and ran back into that hole.
Wow.
Yeah, he said that it was scary. He said it just put the fear in him. He just wanted to stay in the car after that. And it was a summer night.
Something interesting. He said that his car conked out, so I wonder if that was coincidence or if that was just being around this strange paranormal.
It was meant to be.
Right.
Yeah.
There's things we just don't know. I will tell you a story about a UEP ceremony I was in a long time ago. This is when I just met who is to be my wife now. I went to a UEP ceremony, which was done in pitch black. The UEP man has a buffalo robe, and they tie him up in the buffalo robe, and they tie him with sinew. And at each junction of the sinew, there's a bell. And then the drummers do their thing. And sometimes you're visited by relatives, spirits, animals, could be anything. This night, it was ravens, and they flew right over. You could feel them. Not only could I feel them, you can hear them. One climbed right up my back and perched on my shoulders and then launched off my shoulders. And then when the ceremony's done, the UEP man is sitting in the middle of the robe, untied, yet you didn't hear anything. The weird thing was that people and the UEP man at the ceremony came right up to me after, and they said, "You were touched, weren't you?" I said, "Well, how would you know that?" They said, "You're actually glowing, but you were touched by one of the spirits that night." After that, I had weird orbs visit me for I don't know how many days, quite a few. And my wife, which we were just kind of getting to know each other, she's with this freak and she's not. She's at my place and lights are off, and here all these different color orbs are going off. And she's like, "What is going on?" I said, "That's just the grandfathers coming to say hello." She goes, "What are you talking about? And this is weird." There's things we just don't know about, and as Darren was saying about opening different doors, I think that's a thing. I think when you go back to the occult, if you open certain doors,
they stay open.
You can close them. I think you got to be careful. I think you got to be very, very, very careful, because any open door is an invitation. You don't get to say to what. I don't think you get to say to what. So if you're dealing with something that did decide to leave what was called in scripture the heavens, and to choose to follow who my father would call Lucifer, the angel of light, I think we could be in big trouble. Especially when you're dealing with things that dimensionally, they can come into our dimension as easy as pie. But for us to go to a different dimension is, I think, physically impossible. We are three-dimensional beings. Could we survive in a fourth? No, we couldn't. But where do we think? I can tell you where my body is. I can tell you where I live. I can tell you everything about everything of my life is in the third dimension. But where do we think? I believe we think in a different dimension.
Yeah.
I think that's why we are different than the other created beings, is because we do have that ability, that gift given to us upon creation to think in a different dimension.
It reminds me of something, you know, like in the Navajo culture, when we say our neck, we say shikos. And then when we say clouds, it's the same thing, kos. Then so like, you know, so like the neck, the cloud is our neck in our head, our thinking. It's supposed to be of something that's not connected to this world, that's like
Isn't that
heavenly and
something?
open. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the words.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It reminded me. But yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, go ahead. Sorry to bust.
No, I know. I want to hear more of that, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's like, wow.
Oh
Here,
yeah.
I think I'm so smart, right?
No,
that's exactly what I think. I think we do, because where is it housed, and how do we share ideas? How do we share thoughts? Where does that live? I can't share my car with you unless I physically give it to you, but I can share my thoughts, and I can share my thoughts to thousands simultaneously. So where does that live?
Yeah, and especially like when you dream too, you can't control that, and it just sometimes like dreams will show you what's gonna happen, because you know, like I can see 3 days ahead of time, you know, or a day ahead of time sometimes, and when it happens, it's kind of scary for me. Like, all right, somebody's giving me these images, you know, someone's telling me this is gonna happen tomorrow. Like, you know, like there's a lot of questions and, you know, mysteries of this life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are. And it also reminds me of what happens to our relations that have gone before us. Is there something very much meaningful about speaking of their life and keeping them here with us in a certain context? Does that keep them, not just keep their memory of them, maybe it keeps more than their memory?
Yeah.
Do you know what
it's kind of weird, because my grandpa visits my mom whenever I drive fast. He tells her, he said, "Go tell Donovan, go tell him I don't like it. He's driving fast." Or he sends messages to me through my mom or my son. Well, he only visited me one time. I just started crying when I seen him.
Wow.
But yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So you mentioned that you fast, and I think fasting is another thing that isn't just physical. Even Jesus talked about fasting and how important fasting was. And when he talked about exercising spirits, he did tell one of the apostles at one time that this spirit won't leave without prayer and fasting. I think there's something to fasting that is very significant. And I think we're in danger of it being lost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yep, that's true. That is very true.
I'll be right back. Let me excuse myself, guys. Go ahead, keep going.
Right. Yeah, just modern life now. Everybody has access to food, and you know, even the food industry right now is just giving everybody garbage, man. It's you just really got to go back to the roots, you know.
Yep.
Cleanse yourself, cleanse your body, you know.
100%.
Even better, you clean your spirit, you know, your being, who you are. And it's you know, it's a good thing I for this podcast, man, because it opens up a lot of communication, and I really like just talking to people, especially like this, you know. Like, just normally I'm not really a talkative guy. Even I was talking with I met up with the old work friend of mine's, and I told him, like, yeah, man, I started doing. We just caught up about 5 years, and it's like, well, I actually got into podcast business. And he kind of looked at me like, you? Like, why? Like, man, you're like the most quietest person out there, man. It's like, I was like, oh, but I don't know, man. It's just access to information right now is just bliss, you know. Even talking with you right now, you're 1,000 miles away, and you know, we get to hear your side of the story, and they're even better. Thousands of people get to hear yours, and you know, it's a good thing, man. But yeah. So what do you got, Chris? What's your ideas? It's almost down to the last bit too.
Well, I think what you just mentioned about food is really, really important. I think we do need to go back to basics and go back to the roots, get back to real stuff. I think the whole thing with the Monsanto and the GMO food and the proprietary ownership of food and the altering of it. To me, from where I've been and what I've learned about the occult, that's a ritual. That's a ritual to affect you guys, me included, and not them. They're not eating that crap. COVID itself was a ritual. I picked up on that really quick. The masks were a ritual. The name was a ritual. The COVID-19, the co-virus, corona, crown, the spike protein, spica meaning thorns, the crown of thorns virus. Give me a break. Man. Covering your face, the whole thing was a ritual. The whole thing was a ritual.
I've been saying that too. I've been saying that too when it first popped up to my brothers. Like, this is not normal. Like, this is man-made. This something's going on. You know, like
this is high magic. Right?
It's like when they put that thing up your nose to get you sick.
Yeah, right.
That's what I thought. You know, because after they did that to me, I was sick right away. Like, what the hell did you guys do to me?
Are you taking something from me, or are you putting something in me?
Yeah, I thought they put something in me. Like, it's like, hey, you guys poked my third eye. You know, like, what the hell? You know, you know, it's like, boom. You know, it was just weird. Like, this whole side was like, it was strange, man. When that experience. We have a listener here that says, my brother had a sleep paralysis one night. He said a hairy-faced dwarf was sitting on his chest, choking and chanting.
Wow.
Oh man,
that sounds like a curse.
Oh man, that escalated pretty quick, huh? Have you seen? What about you, Chris? Have you seen anything like that?
I haven't seen gnomes. I have had sleep paralysis that were induced by spiritual attacks. I have physically had welts. This happened on the res, where there was hauntings happening where I was staying for a long time. I was into some bad stuff at that time, though. I was into native things, but I was also having an amalgam with still some dark stuff from where I hadn't broken out of the entire thing yet. And it was very clearly, I would say at the very least, oppression in that place. And I'd warn people, if you hear banging, if you hear things running around the outside of the property, this is what it is. And they all, well, whatever. And that same night I was telling, I had people over, we were partying, right? I was physically attacked from head to toe in welts. Head to toe. Everywhere. In my ears. Every crevice. And one of the girls got a little bit freaked out. Came time to quiet the party down. It was getting late. I said, you can crash in my room. I'll crash out here. It's fine. She woke up screaming that something similar to what the hairy guy, but this wasn't hairy. She described it as just a very dark being sitting on her chest, crushing her. And she got up and ran screaming out of the house. And that was it. Oh, Take me home. I am out of here. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. Only thing I had something close to that experience. I had my cousin. He lived in American Fort in Utah, northern Utah, and you know I was passing by. I stayed the night. You know, I was hanging out with him and his girlfriend, and you know we went to sleep, and you know this dream I had like this one little kid was on top of me, you know, and he had red hair. And his face, he was a white kid, but his face had a lot of cuts. His face had like gashes, like his skin was open all over his face. Everything was cut like this. Wow. And he had a long ass knife, and he was gonna stab me. And I moved like this really quick. He missed me. And the second time he went, he missed me, and I threw him off. And when I threw him off to get off the bed to stand up, it was morning time, and I stood up, and the air mattress I was sleeping on was flat. And, you know, I was still processing, and then, you know, my eyes got big. I was like, no. I went to where my head was, and there was 2 holes.
No.
A knife. Yeah, I'm not lying. dude, man, you know, I was yelling, I was pissed off, you know, I was like, you little da, 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 you know, I'm gonna go back to sleep, I'm gonna throw your ass around again, you know.
Wow.
And I woke up my cousin, his girlfriend. I was like, look, this is what happened to me. Look, it really did happen. Look, you know, and they're just looking at me like, I don't know what to tell you. You know?
That's so wild when you talk about that, because there's obviously a thin veil between when what we call the paranormal meets the physical, right?
Yeah.
Or the it's wild.
Yeah, I have the same thing too, man. It's like I don't know what it is about the sleep paralysis or where it comes from or what it is, but I had the same thing happen to me too. You know, I was seeing a little goblin thing underneath the coffee table once, in my brother's apartment in Globe. And the weird thing is they about maybe a week earlier, me and my brothers were in my younger brother's room. They were playing like Xbox or something, and everybody's eyes moved, and we all seen a little goblin thing run out of my brother's room and down the stairs. And my two other brothers, they were like, did you see that? And my oldest brother, he went and he kind of did that little sneak, and he looked down the stairs, and he's like, huh, you saw that, right? Like my the other younger brother Brian, he's like, yeah. They said I wasn't there, but no, I was there. I was watching you guys. I seen that little thing run out, and like a week later, something happened, and those two left the apartment. I stayed behind, fell asleep on the couch, and that's what I seen. They had those little cheesy infomercials, you know, like freaking what do you call those little crock pots, like cook it faster, easier, you know, ShamWow stuff like that was going on. And I was laying on my left side, and I looked down, woke up, you know, I couldn't move or nothing. Then I seen that little goblin thing. It had a big bulbous head, and like, yeah, and you could see the spine on the back thing. You could see it, yeah, hunched over, and it had its finger, and it was like drawing something on the tile. Then the freaking infomercial channel changed, and the whole room went black. Then when it came back on, the little thing was crawling towards me, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And I guess I snapped out, and I threw a left hook at it, right hook, you know. Then I woke up, like, "What the hell was that about, man?" And then I called my brothers, told them what was happening. They just kind of laughed at me, like, why are you guys laughing, man? Like, this, we already seen shadow people in your freaking apartment, dude. Like, man, after that, freaking turned into a little kid, turned on all the lights, and man, I stayed up until the sun came up. I don't know what it is, but man, these sleep paralysis is just a little link, you know?
That's creepy, especially when you were talking about him drawing something on the floor. That almost sounds like he was drawing something with geomancy or a sigil.
Yeah,
that's creepy stuff.
Yeah, that whole apartment was just weird, man. Freaking, we can do a whole story about that apartment. That apartment's still there too, but man, it's I don't know what it was doing, but yeah, I know what I seen. You know, and this happened years ago. But,
I noticed like when like the first time I seen my little person was when my grandmother died. Everyone in the house was just crying. No one was cooking. Everyone was just in the room. The house was dark, and I don't know how I survived. You know, but you know, I woke up from a nightmare, and I looked underneath the table, and I just seen this little person, you know, with his own set of clothes. You know, he's trying to hide from me, and he ran around to the kitchen, and he was gone.
Wow.
So you know, it's just weird things that happen, especially when death comes around. You know,
yeah, for sure. I haven't seen a little person, but when my grandfather died, I was living in Alberta. He was in Ontario. I was getting ready for bed, Alberta time, because we're different time zones. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I was getting dressed. Everything in the house was off except for the bathroom where I was. And my wife was in the bedroom, but I didn't know at the time exactly where she was. So I'm getting dressed, I'm talking to her, and we're talking back and forth. And I said something, and she didn't answer. And I looked, just stuck my head out facing the kitchen area, and I saw her. I said, "Are you going to answer me or what?" And she said, "Well, what do you mean? I'm right here." And I looked, and it came from the bedroom. I said, "Where are you right now?" And she said, "I'm in the bedroom." I said, "You're not in the kitchen? Because I'm looking at you." She's like, "No." So I looked back to the mirror, finished washing up, the phone rang, and it was my dad. My dad never cried. He was crying this time. He was beside himself. And he said, "I just lost my dad. So your granddad's gone," which is freaky. And I think that was my granddad just coming to say, "See ya."
Wow. Yeah. We get that a lot. Yeah. Yeah, they do visit, you know, like from when my grandmother died. I had a dream that my mom, she was chasing me around the house to spank me. You know, I was a naughty kid. The third time I ran around the house, my grandma was sitting underneath the tree, and she's like, "Come here," you know. She said, telling me in Navajo, "Come here, come here." I went over there, grabbed her. I was like, "Grandma, let's go away. You know, I want to go away with you. You know, let's leave this place." And we got into, you know, as a child, I didn't think it was a chariot. You know, it was like a little cedar with the whole roof gone. It's just a seat, you know, and I got in there with her. I didn't see what was in the front. I didn't see that. She got in, I got in with her, you know. I was just holding her. She had curly hair. And then we started leaving. We started getting speed, and we started going up to the sky. You know, I was holding her like this, you know, closing my eyes, and I opened my eyes. I seen the Earth getting small, and I seen all these galaxies that we see on the Milky Way, all the telescopes. I seen them already, passing the different galaxies, the spiral ones, passing them, all these stars, and we're getting to someplace really bright behind me. And I'm looking, and I woke up, and my grandpa, he's like, "You want to see your grandma for the last time?" It was her funeral.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, you know, and we buried her that day.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't want to wake
all
up.
These just mysteries, huh?
There's so many, eh?
Yeah. There's so much to ask and wonder in this world. Never a dull moment.
Yeah, that's why we're here. You know, we're here to talk about it. You know, all the things that, you know, the society tells us not to talk about and sweep it under the rug, you know, and especially for us Native Americans, you know, we feel like, you know, we could be connected, you know, maybe by birth or by blood or by, you know, some that happened in the past, you know, that makes us more sensitive to these things, you know, from the spirit realm to the cryptid realms. You know, maybe they all correlate the same frequencies. I don't know, you know. And
well, I think frequencies are a very interesting topic that we could talk about some other time.
Frequencies
all on its own, even when not just sound frequencies but color frequencies. Some freaky stuff.
Yeah, like the medicine man, like when they're doing their chants, they're getting into that vibration, the hum, the chant, the frequency, and the vibration. All of it all intertwines, and then they can, like, you know, it's just another can of worms on that point. You know, like they say that God, that's how he created this world. The same way he sung everything, you know, like same thing Jesus said, you know, I am the word, you know, he's the one that laid foundations, the cornerstones, you know, like a lot of our culture and the Bible mirrors each other a lot. It's strange, you know what I mean?
There's a lot.
It's cool.
It's cool.
It's really awesome.
Even with this great flood story too, that's in the Bible. Even the Navajos have stories of a great flood, you know,
amazing.
Obviously something like that happened, you know. For sure. Even people that didn't even communicate like what we're doing right now, you know, years ago, never met, always mentioned some type of great flood. It's weird. Strange.
Yeah. We got 5 minutes, guys. You guys got any final thoughts, any final questions, Darren, you got for Chris?
Well, Chris, thanks, man. It's you know, it kind of puts me at a warmer spot to know that, you know, you found yourself, you got through all this stuff with your father, you know, and you went you went to the reservation, and you found your stuff. It's an amazing story that you told right here, and but overall, I'm glad that you made it through, and you found who you are now, and that's a good thing. And you know, kudos to you, bro. For that.
Oh
It's a real
yeah.
strong story you told.
Well, thank you very
But
much.
but this is our podcast, but this is your episode. Do you have any final words of wisdom, anything you want to tell the listeners right here? Now's the time. Tell the world.
Stay weird out there.
Well, thanks for having me on. We've been talking back and forth for a while. It's great to be here. I don't know about words of wisdom. I know that the world is in a very precarious situation right now. I think where we are is simultaneous with prophecy. I think we're in for some dark times. And I think we as humans need to really connect with what matters and be ready to face the truth if the truth is there. Like I said earlier, you don't have to accept it. You've got the free will not to, but it might knock on your door. And if you're not ready to open it, I hope you're ready for the consequences. We need to be here for each other. I think the two things that Jesus said were the most important was, one, love your God. This is paraphrasing. Two, love your neighbor as yourself. I don't think we're loving our neighbors as ourselves.
No.
I don't think we can love our neighbors as ourselves if we don't do the first one. And I think love is the biggest thing. And what does that mean? I think there is lowercase love, and I think there is uppercase love, where we don't have to judge each other. We don't have to get into a discussion what's right and wrong in the eyes of the creator. I think we just have to really understand the grace we were shown by the creator of being created. And to whatever other people have going on in their lives, it's not up to you to look down your nose. It's there to be there for them and know that at one point in time, you were in that same spot. Everybody's been through a rough road at some point in time, and not to judge on that level, but to be there and show what love is. And can you love your neighbor as yourself? That's really tough, man. That's really tough, especially in times like this when sometimes people don't love themselves. They don't want to be here any longer. That's a terrible spot to be.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do this? How do we have like this community where we actually love each other, where you see a guy on the street that's homeless and you walk by? Dude, if that was your auntie or uncle or your mom or dad, what would you do? Right? Mm-hmm. We are connected, whether you like it or not. We are brothers and sisters. We better start treating each other like that. Or when the truth does that, you might think it's the pizza guy and you're going to miss out, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, Chris, you said it better. You said it good, man. Everyone needs to love their neighbors like they love themselves. Lay your lives down for your friends. Yep, exactly. Selfless love. We got a Country Road Cryptids. Thanks, men. Fascinating conversations. Please do more lives. We sure will every Sunday. Just come and join
every
us.
Sunday. Yep. We got an extra hour too.
Oh yeah, Eugenio Vasquez. Great show. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Guests and hosts. Let's see, Trissa. It almost says Fires, but Fires. Thanks for another great show and great topic of experiences, Don and Darren. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. We appreciate you guys watching. Please like and subscribe. And you guys, keep you guys out. This is the end of our show. See you later, guys. One last time.
What?
Later.
All right. Stick around, guys. Later. All right. Thank you, Darren. See you in a little bit. All righty. Thank you for tuning in to Don't Whistle at Night. We're broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. You guys stay weird out there and have a great week. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe. Thank you. Okay.